Hello, everyone. I'm your cult boyfriend, and I'm here with Jacob. How are you doing, Jacob?
I'm good. I'm adjusting myself. Hold on. There we go. I had a
Excellent.
blanket under me.
Right. This week we're actually talking about an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like one of my favorite televisions ever, if not my most favorite one. Like my favorite shows are Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dawson's Creek, and Veronica Mars. And I think Buffy got to be like it had so many opportunities to be like as good of a show as it was. It was so intensely popular. Veronica Mars, on the other hand, was like saved by the grace of God at the end of every season. It should have died. It should have been canceled, but somehow they got to come back. But there are all these weird studio notes that like kept it from being this masterful through and through. But genius still poked its way in. I even have a Buffy tattoo there.
You have a
It says
couple, don't
face
you?
on it. Oh, you got to see that I'm wearing boxers in this. No big deal. I didn't,
That,
I didn't account for that, but things are gonna get a bit spicy. Actually, to let me start this off. We're covering an episode called "The Body," and the body deals specifically with trauma and loss, and the way that people process grief. And it's a very wonderful depiction, but it's also the kind of episode that almost like provokes or the kind of episode that
bring shit
insists
up.
that you engage with it.
Yeah.
So if trauma makes you feel uncomfortable talking about pain, grief, loss, like these are like heavier subjects, I'm I just want to give a heads up. This isn't going to be like the happiest video I've ever done. It's not going to be the saddest either. It's just get ready for discussions like personal anecdotes, just discussions on how to handle grief, loss, and trauma. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe click off. But I would also hope that if you clicked on this specific video, you have seen like either all of Buffy or at the very least up to this point. Um, because the body is something I think is incredible that I wouldn't want spoiled for anyone. So if you're watching this video, just out of your like kind allegiance to Jacob and I would click off and start Buffy, and then come back here when you get like I don't know 100 or so episodes in. Um, till we get the body. I just want to give a heads up. We're going to be talking about like personal things, emotional things, the deliberately provocative things emotionally. I don't know. I want to do that. Jacob, what's your relationship with Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Uh, I probably love it about as much as you do. I don't know when I watched Buffy. I think I watched it when I was started maybe like 17 or 18 years old. Um, yeah, roughly, probably tail end of high school, and then into like early college, I was watching Buffy. So it's been years since I actually watched it consistently. I only recently picked it back up again, just after ages. Um, yeah, I definitely love it about the same as you do. It's one of my favorite shows, if not my favorite. I might give the edge to Twin
Don't,
Peaks
don't.
or like
I was like,
yeah,
don't say
or
it. Don't you say
no,
it.
no, specifically the return.
That's
I
fair.
actually
No,
think
I know
yeah,
exactly.
if we're talking just like Twin Peaks season 1 and 2, barely makes the top five, barely makes that. Like Buffy way above that. Return though is like my favorite work of art. So but no, Buffy is huge, huge, huge for me. Probably the first show I ever proper fell in love with, at least like to that degree, because I'm not much of a TV person. I never really have. That's why I only cite like Twin Peaks, and maybe the only other show I've been into in the past like decade has been The Leftovers. And otherwise, I don't watch TV. But Buffy just it hits something real with me. It hits something really real with me. And I still think about it frequently. Again, I hadn't watched it for years, and I still think about it quite often. I guess it's just the right intersection of things for me. And I also find that as I get older, I relate to different parts of the show.
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's
know,
an incredibly like multi-layered experience. Joss Whedon, who's like the showrunner over here, and also wrote and directed the episode we're talking about today. Uh, and I don't care. He was a genius once upon a time, and like Buffy is particularly inspired. Um, I've always loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but as I get older, the more complexities I see within it, within this thing that seems pretty superficial to probably most people. But like I'm used to that. I cover Dawson's Creek all the time. No one ever gives that show the time of day. Um, but whereas like Dawson's Creek, I think is like stunningly postmodern and really cool, and like Veronica Mars is awkwardly like conservative. Like I really
Yeah.
like that weird philosophy it's got going for itself. Um, Buffy and Joss as a whole is like existentialist to the point of being nihilistic, like to
Yeah.
really engaging and flirting, more than flirting. Like by season 6 and things like Joss Whedon can be a nihilist. I mean, at his most romantic, he's existentialist, but he's pretty nihilistic
Oh,
as a
100%.
thinker.
100%. No, and even from the beginning, I mean, I was thinking, obviously I'm far from the first person to bring this up, but like it's funny to do an episode like this considering like the show is based on innocent people dying on like a weekly basis.
Yep.
I actually, because like I said, I picked it up again recently. It was kind of weird because I'm in season 2, so I jumped from season 2 to the body, but it works well as like a standalone thing, so it's not too
It does.
rough. But I was in season 2. The last one I watched actually earlier today was the one that introduces Spike. It's the one where
Yeah.
Buffy has to like set up like the parent teacher thing, and then Spike shows up, and like her mom is stuck with the principal in the back. That one, and
Might
there's a
be
part.
unpopular, but forget introducing Spike. They introduced Drusilla, and
Yeah,
Drusilla
I
is
love
so
Drusilla.
fucking
Drusilla's
cool.
amazing. But well, that's the thing is like the Buffy's classmate who's like lumped in with her as like a quote unquote like bad seed, you know, she doesn't go to
Hmm.
school and shit like that. She gets kidnapped by Spike, tied up, and then Drusilla like rips her fucking throat, turns her into a
Yes.
vampire. At another part of the episode, there's a guy who I think you're meant to assume is either a teacher or a parent of a student, and Spike just fucking breaks his neck without even turning him into
Well,
a vampire.
if I
Like
remember correctly, like Spike essentially like sets a child on fire, like the chosen one,
yes.
right?
Yeah, the anointed one.
The anointed one. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
annoying one, yeah. As I see the internet refer to him as the annoying one. Yeah, the anointed
Oh
one.
man.
I love how they got rid of that plot point because they're like, this is going fucking nowhere, but we're stuck with it. We got to kill him somehow fast.
In season
No,
2,
but
that's when it turns masterful, and it turns
yeah,
masterful. Like you're getting all your characters in order because you got Oz about to come in, and you got all these other
yes,
people. Like it's about the stage is almost set, and then you get the beautiful part where Buffy and Angel finally sleep together, and Angel takes
it
her
goes
virginity. And
horribly wrong.
it drives her boyfriend to turn into the most toxic, sadistic person on the like. David Boreanaz is actually a great actor when he's doing his Angelus bit, when he's
Yeah,
actually being
when he's
sadistic
not
and
doing
cruel.
an Irish accent, but
That's when
no,
he's
it's brutal. It's where the show like turns Buffy into like a punching bag. And I know like given like all the recent shit with Joss, you can, you know, make whatever moral judgments you want about like why Joss chose to do that, but I do think there's like
yeah.
something profoundly relatable
Well,
in I don't entirely trust his reasons for turning Buffy into a punching bag, but I still find like her transformation into one as like profoundly relatable.
yeah.
The
And
specific ways, because it's yeah, or go ahead.
I've spoken elsewhere about like Joss Whedon is a problematic person and like most likely a creep.
Oh
I
no,
believe,
horrible human. Yeah.
yeah, I believe Charisma Carpenter. She is queen. I mean, I believe Cordelia. Like Joss
Yeah,
Whedon is most
it's
likely a creep. I've
no,
said
he's a
that
creep.
elsewhere. Uh,
He's been borderline like artistically bankrupt for over a decade. For
yes,
me,
yeah.
he
That's why I said once upon a time he really had something to
yeah,
express.
and of
That once
course
upon
even
a
at
time was when I was like 9 years old, though. Like,
yeah, and again, like even then, like I take his sincerity with a lot of the stuff I find profound in Buffy with a grain of salt. At points, some parts are genuine, and other things I find like more suspect. But even then, I think they're at least partly elevated by the people involved in the show. You know, like
oh
I think the show would be considerably less worthwhile if it weren't for say like Sarah Michelle Gellar and
And a
actors like
lot
that.
of the writers on the show too, like
Oh yeah,
show running's a weird thing like to talk about because like I will credit Dawson's Creek mostly to Kevin Williamson or Buffy
but
mostly to
obviously,
Joss, but
yeah,
that show would be nothing without so many of the writers who worked on that show for all fucking 6 or 7 years and then moved on to Angel too. Like he had a
yeah.
great group of collaborators with him.
I think
I
a
mean,
good one is Nicholas Brendan and Xander, because I think minus Nicholas Brendan, Xander would be like a fucking horrible character. But then
yes.
plus Nicholas Brendan,
Oh well,
Xander becomes something else.
I
Like my
always
favorite
cry.
episode is his episode
Oh
actually.
yeah, you
My
like
favorite
the Zip, right?
The Zeppo
The
is my favorite
Zeppo.
episode, probably. I mean, there's other episodes I love and I've watched more, but I don't know. The Zeppo is always the one that like stuck in my mind, especially considering like I didn't like Xander that much at that point, but then that was an episode where I was like, man, maybe I relate to Xander. Maybe I'm also an asshole. I don't know, but uh, anyway, the body though was where the show
The
took like
body
a real
was,
turn. This
yeah,
was
I
like the
haven't,
beginning of season 6 in its own way, like the
yeah,
real premiere for season 6, because season 6 is like the depression season.
exactly. I I don't hide at all. I think the body is one of the best directed things I've ever seen. I think this really cements
Oh, it's
Joss
beautiful.
Whedon as a very capable visual storyteller for sure.
Yeah.
That's like there's compositional like methods in here that I just haven't seen anywhere else, and I'd be hard pressed to find something that deals with this kind of immediate reaction to trauma as well as eloquently or as confrontationally
Mm.
as this did. Um, but one thing that does make Whedon unique, and I think this is all Whedon because it's apparent in all of his major works, like Buffy and Firefly and Dollhouse and Angel, um, is his existentialist philosophy, but mostly his. I've heard him talk on like commentaries for Firefly, like mostly his hyper fixation on Jean-Paul Sartre's work. He talked about like reading Nausea as like
Yeah.
the most like enlightening experience of his life, like a life-changing revelation reading Nausea by Sartre. And there's this part in Nausea where like the narrator is on a bus and he sees a bench and then he imagines each object that makes up that bench as its individual thing, and then he loses he gets existentially nauseous by the very concept of what an object is and how we
Yeah.
place like definitions and meanings just on mere objects. And of course in like Firefly he'd use that to go like a gun isn't a gun, it's a flower, but a flower has no meaning if it doesn't have any intent, or does intent even have a meaning? So he's really interested in like vessels of meaning, which brings us to the body. Like he would do this a little bit before, like he'd experiment specifically with like the body and like what makes up an identity. Like that's what all of Dollhouse was about. But even before on Buffy, there's a great Faith episode where like Buffy and Faith literally switch bodies. And it's like that.
Yeah.
It
I
talks
remember
about
that.
like what is like the composite makeup of identity, and you're still self-hating if you're no longer yourself? And the answer is, of course, yes. Self-hate is eternal because Joss Whedon's a nihilist. Um,
Mm.
but we get all the way to the body with that kind of like philosophical makeup, where one of the most stunning things about the episode is that it's clearly the episode where Buffy's mother is dead, and I like that there's no really thematic lead up to this. I believe the episode before was like an intro to the Warren character. He'd become a villain in season 6, like in his like
Yeah.
robot girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't.
a really light episode, and then she comes home and her mother's dead on the couch, and that's where that episode ends, and this one picks
Yeah.
up. So really, just no. There are hints like her mother's having like health problems.
Yeah. I remember
But
that was like recurring throughout the season, that she was
yeah,
getting like MRIs and shit.
there's just no thematic build into it. It's very very much emotional whiplash. But this episode starts off beautifully. Uh, One of the most interesting things about it for me is that like Buffy's mother becomes almost immediately like her body becomes inanimate. Like her body like Buffy almost immediately has to disown or separate the body from the person, and she even damages the body. Like when she's doing CPR. I don't even know where to
Oh
start
yeah.
with this episode.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Um,
brutal sound effect in that one.
Pretty brutal sound effect that I think is all still within this one long take that Joss opens up this episode with
Yeah,
of Buffy. By the way, everyone did an amazing job acting in this episode, and Sarah Michelle Gellar
exceptional
really
work.
got to express a lot of range.
Literally every actor gets like a showcase
Yeah,
in this episode. It's
they
really
really do.
beautiful. There's the my
Um,
favorite is the centerpiece, which is the all the rest of the friends like in
mhm.
Willow's apartment, and it's
Oh,
like it cycles through each of them. But we'll get to that. But
yeah, I cry every time I watch this episode at different parts. Different parts get me as I get
yeah,
older and I'm processing my own grief. Like my mother died when I was probably like Buffy's age in this. I was barely out of high school, like a year or two out of high school, and like my mom died then of a drug overdose. And father died in a car accident around the same time, and like like uh and the way that this that Joss Whedon handles this um it is quite astonishing. It just makes me think of weird things like my mother said too. Because I saw my father's body. Remember, like we had a dog, like a family dog that was mauled to death by another dog, and like before buried the body, kept the body in like a bathtub or something. And like my mom was like she didn't I was like 8 or 9 and she didn't like want me to see the body because like she had this thing that was like once you see like a corpse you forget what that person was like when they were actually alive, and like I refused to listen. I'm like, I gotta go see my dog. And like, I mean, she was right. It's just like a stiff fucking thing that doesn't really like have an essence anymore. In fact, it just like kind of beats into your head the finality of every like nihilistic outcome. Even for an 8-year-old, that's not really hard to see. So like when my mom died, like my grandparents went and identified the body or whatever, but I had the like option not to see it, and like out of respect for her I didn't, because like her philosophy isn't wrong, and I think like Joss agrees with it. I don't even know if Joss is saying that like seeing the body is crucial for um seeing the body completely, like I think damages the perspective of, I don't know. I don't know. This
uh,
is the personal testimony area. So
yeah, I don't know. I feel like not to jump to the end of the episode, but the ultimate endpoint is that it, at least for Buffy and Dawn, it doesn't like make a difference. Like I think it gives Dawn something to look for. You know, like she still she can get she like she I think like for Dawn it's she feels she'll get closure from it, and so she fixates on the idea of seeing the body.
I,
But
I think I think she gets lost in a nihilistic abandon. Like it reminds me of with the
yeah,
dog, or when my father died, because like her react like like I was at where Buffy's at when my mom died. Of like that's not her. She's not in there anymore. And then Dawn says like, then where did she go? Like, and
yeah,
then it brilliantly ends with like her about
yeah.
to touch. Like you're like,
It's a
God
night.
damn, Joss.
It's super quiet. It's super quiet. You don't expect that that's the end of the episode at all. It's really beautifully done.
It's almost like when a human dies, the body is dehumanizing. Well, obviously that's the actual literal definition, right? A
Yeah,
dehumanized.
yeah. It's really abstracted. It's super abstracted. It's very weird. I mean, obviously the part where I can't remember her name. You get like the whole monologue about like I just don't understand it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, in the middle of the
Oh,
episode.
it's that moment where we can go back to the beginning now. It's that
Yeah.
moment where when she has Giles come over, um,
Yeah, it's really
and like you can see the moment where Buffy stops seeing her mother's corpse as her mother and starts seeing it as an object. Is
mm,
then the line, and it's one of the most perfectly delivered lines I've ever heard. Sarah Michelle Gellar did so fucking well. Like she's like, no, stop. We're not supposed to move the body. Like I can't do it,
yeah,
obviously. But that when she actually says the body, like not supposed to move her. No, it's an object now. We have to object, like dehumanize this thing in
yeah,
order to move past it or accept it as an object, because it's no longer has any essence or identity or definition, or it finally does have a true definition. It's a body now.
yeah.
Like it's wild that like we're only 3 minutes into this Buffy episode and there's so many like this concepts, like wildly complicated
It
concepts being thrown at you to like to confront and accept.
Yeah, it does a really good job of laying out kind of, I guess, I don't know, the schematic of the episode will follow from that point.
Mhm.
It does a really good job. You get like it's I don't know if you'd call them grace notes, but the episode is like full of these like weird. I guess you could just call them like Ozu shots. Like I think of like the shot in the late spring where there's like this really emotionally tumultuous point in the story, and then it just cuts to a vase for like 2 minutes.
Yes,
And
yes. Oh,
there's shots like that throughout this episode. The first one I think is Buffy. She throws up and then she looks out the window, or there's like
yeah.
the wind chimes. That's the first one, and then there's several more throughout the episode. It actually kind of it
And that's Joss's way of showing that these are all just objects.
yeah, they're objects, and also just it's like a life, like the world keeps moving without us kind of thing.
Exactly.
It
And
actually
like,
reminded me in more, or sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
Okay, it reminded me more of this might seem like a weird comparison, especially for Joss Whedon. It might be sacrilege. It reminded me of Kiarostami a few times, just because there's a movie called Life and Nothing More, and also Taste of Cherry, which like Life and Nothing More specifically, it's about the aftermath of an earthquake, I think, of like a natural disaster that destroys this village or community, and the people just like, people are dead, like family members are dead, people are lost, their homes are decimated, they have to leave, they have to find new places to go, and the whole movie just consists of things like people watching soccer or like paying for soda in the aftermath, like
Yeah.
like the things just keep happening. There's no like conclusiveness, there's no like, dramatic punctuation to any of these things. Buffy's
No.
mom dies and she
In
just
fact, like it spits in the face of every fucking postmodern analysis I've ever done on this channel because it actually
yeah
gets to
yeah
like the very human moment because like it like watching it, I'm always transported back to that time when I'm told like my dad's dead or your mom's dead, and the person that was telling it to you, you're not focusing on their face. It's not cinematically
Oh,
done.
you mean,
You're looking
yeah,
at
when
them from
he's,
here. You're looking
yeah,
at like a random spot on them, just like Joss focuses on the paramedic and the doctor, like from Buffy's eye view, because she's
yeah,
just losing it, staring off, just like vacant. And that's how it is, and it fits against every postmodern thing I've ever said of like we want our lives
mhm.
to be cinematic, therefore they are. No, they're not.
There's no,
They are not.
yeah,
When actual life happens to you, it's anti-cinema. You don't get to see the
yeah,
person's face delivering it in a single clean shot. You're looking at it from here, like,
yeah,
and it's unappealing and it's distracting, and it's
hmm
just so much emotion in that. Like I can't, like I'm getting emotional talking about it, as you should, because this is actually really those are really striking moments for me, and
I,
it proves that there's more to this life than my easy postmodern reading of it. So that's
yeah.
fun.
I and I mentioned to you, but like I didn't really, none of this registered for me when I originally watched this episode. Like again,
Yeah.
back in like 2013 to 2015 ballpark, around that time. For a few reasons. One was because I had it spoiled for me. I told you that. I knew this happened around season 2. I didn't know how the episode was structured though. So I didn't know it was like this thing. I assumed like, oh, she probably gets killed by the bad guy or something. And also I didn't really like Joyce. So at the time, I didn't like. I kind of like dislike Joyce as a person throughout the show, but that obviously never occurred to me on this viewing because I think it's mostly irrelevant to because it's
Yeah.
about Buffy. But also, I had never gone through this at that point in time, so all of the touches that serve to be relatable in some way just didn't register for me in any way, shape, or form. I did not follow that at all. Like I was like, oh, it's cool. It's like there's quiet, there's no music, so it feels like really realistic. And I was like, I kind of like made it technical almost what it's trying to do. Whereas like I watch it now and my grandmother died in the past year and a half, and it was different from this. It was like we knew it was actually reminded me of the part that where Tara's like Buffy asks her like about when her mother died. And she's like, was it sudden? She's like, no, but also yes, because like my grandmother was like her body was giving out for like a whole month, and so it was a process, and like she was kind of like out of it for a whole week. But then when
And
it
Tara's
actually
like
happened,
no, it wasn't sudden, but yes, it was because it's always sudden.
Yeah. It was because like her body, like she had been basically like flatline, like she was out of it for a week, but then like her body was still working, so she wasn't gone yet. So we reached a point where we were kind of just like, okay, like we went out, we got food, we come home, and we're like, oh, grandma's still here. She wasn't conscious anymore, but she was like alive, and so it's like we kind of like entered a normalcy about it. And then I think I was watching, my family had been visiting for her to see her, and my uncle got me to watch an episode of Gilmore Girls, which I'd never watched in my fucking life. And it was in the middle of the episode that she died, while we were all kind of like not noticing her, because it was one of those things. So yeah, it was like for a whole week we had been like super attentive, and then all of a sudden we weren't attentive anymore because we had gotten used to the, she wasn't going yet. And then it happened, and it was the most abrupt thing in the fucking world.
Yeah,
And then I saw, that's why I like watching this episode now. I'm like, I saw basically like every character arc that happens in this episode play out in real time.
yeah,
Like I saw like the Xander arc, I saw like the Giles arc play out. Like my uncle was the one who like took the role of like, everyone go grieve, I'll deal with the shit. Like I'll deal with the shit that no one else should have to do. And like there's like the points where Willow's like, I don't know what to fucking wear.
yes.
That like some
I'm
of the
sorry
realest
you
shit.
experienced that, by the way.
Oh no, I don't know if that was
But
too deep into it, but like it
no,
was just
but
to
but
like
even at the end of the day, like when I first watched it, it was closer to my parents dying, so I was like all relating to Buffy and Dawn hardcore. And then
yeah,
a while after, like now it's like Tara. Like now it's
yeah,
because now
100%.
I have friends who are losing their parents now, like or like losing people close to them, and they're
You relate to different characters for in this episode at different points in your life, which I
yeah,
think is
Tara.
a good
Tara
way to think of
normally
Buffy
makes
as a
me
whole.
cry. She didn't make me cry this time. This time it was Anya and her fucking amazing
Yeah,
monologue of
that's
like,
what
I
I meant.
don't know
Yeah,
what to
Anya's monologue.
do. I don't know what to do. Why can't she be making orange juice? Why can't everything just be
Yeah,
normal? I don't know how to act in
yeah.
this situation. Anya
It's
was
really
such an
beautiful.
underrated character. Like, oh my god.
Oh no, Anya's amazing. Anya was one of those characters that like, I guess like a sleeper character. Like you watch the show in the first few seasons, you're like, Anya's all right. And then you get to the end of the show and you reflect back on it and you realize Anya was one of the best characters in the whole show.
Yeah, and Emma
She's almost an
Caulfield, like
audience surrogate in a way,
she
but
she killed that delivery, that mini monologue of like because they start coming down on her, and you always have that friend, or sometimes you feel in a situation where like you're not trying to be emotionally insensitive, but you don't know how you're supposed to act, you know?
yeah, I
Uh,
actually did that. Because like my grandma died, and I didn't know how to fucking process that. And my uncle was like doing the thing where he was like being like, very cold about it just so that everyone else can deal with it while he, calls a coroner and whatever. And I think I made a joke about I was like, yeah, do something funny with my body, like use it for a prank or something, like when I die. And my dad got upset about it because he was like, now I'm talking about dying and shit like that. And I had this moment where it's like, it wasn't me being insensitive because like obviously I fucking love my grandma. Or it was just like,
sure.
I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to do like the thing where I like lighten the mood or like
Yeah.
make it palatable to people? Or yeah, it's like a super disorienting experience. Super disorienting. That's so I watched that part with Anya. I'm like, I forgot about that monologue completely.
It was beautiful and like confrontational, and that shit made me cry watching it this time. I forgot how, I guess watching it like self-contained like this, like
Yeah,
I'm on season 2 as well in my rewatch. Like
yeah,
I haven't met Anya yet. Watching it just like this, I guess maybe without being around Anya all the time, that monologue like hit so hard, and Emma's delivery was just unreal. Of course, Amber Benson as Tara, her performance in here is so subtle though. In that scene where she's like
yeah. It's
doing
because
her
she's
best to
like,
like
it's because she's not
she's
like as
trying so
emotionally
hard.
invested.
Yeah, she's trying so hard to make people feel better, and like she can look at Xander with his hand like with his fist in the wall and like understand the pain, and the pain's not coming from the fist. Like she can like empathic or something, like understand these
Yeah,
things. because she's been there, and I don't think it was revealed that she's been there before.
No,
Um, and
it's
also,
it's.
we'd be remiss not to say that this is how Joss snuck in his first gay kiss. This is the first
Oh
time they were
yeah,
kissed.
yeah. I actually completely forgot about that, and I was reading about the episode earlier, and that came up. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, because I think it's one of those things in your like
Yeah.
in your head can, and you're like, oh, that happened in like season 4 or some shit. It
WB was like really progressive. I think a year or two before Dawson's Creek had the first like two men gay kiss. Um, they definitely did for American television, and then Joss had this over here, and they were on the same network. They can make fun of these shows for being superficial, but they really move things forward. So I mean, it's and in that moment, it's so tender and so sensitive and affectionate, and you're not thinking about it as the first time they kissed on
I think that's
screen.
why he did it, because he
Yeah,
was usually pretty averse to like outright like statements. He didn't want to like
he tried to
glorify.
do it earlier with two different characters, and it my favorite season of Buffy is definitely season Faith, season 3, and
Yeah,
the undertones are still there, or overtones, I should say, that Faith and Buffy
yeah,
like they have sexual attraction to each other, like they do dig each
yeah,
other, they have a queer relationship. But in that, I don't know if you remember the episode where like she has her like tied up or something, like and she's about to run away, and she has her like weird little mayor scorpion dagger thing,
yeah,
to the
yeah. I remember
throat.
that thing.
And
God, it's
in
been
the
ages.
televised version, she kisses Buffy's forehead and runs away. But in the original script, Joss had her kiss her on the mouth and then run away. But they were told they could not do that at all.
Yeah,
They had to wait 2 more years, 2 more seasons to recognize the queer sexuality in any sort of way, which is not Joss's fault. That's WB's fault. But Joss did try to recognize this stuff before.
yeah,
Um, but the body is so incredible to me. Yeah. Like Willow in that scene is like freaking out because she doesn't know what clothes she wants to wear. Like, I can't wear royal blue, and be like, oh,
yeah.
look at me, I'm royalty or whatever. And she's like needlessly critical of Anya, but she's just like there's because like you can see that Tara and Anya feel like Tara knows how to
Outsiders.
handle this situation, but yes, they are outsiders, and they
Yeah, that's
don't.
why I was thinking like Tara's like not as invested in Joyce as the others are. Not because she doesn't like her, but just because she hasn't known her as long, you
Yeah,
know? Like she's relatively new to these people's lives. And so when Joyce died, it was like sort of on the outside of this that person that served as like a mother figure for all of them for years,
exactly. And even
like
the
Xander.
composition of that scene is perfectly like set up with Xander double parking, and then when they all leave the room,
He gets a ticket
um,
for it.
yeah, the camera like slowly pans and moves over to the window to show like a security cop like giving his car a ticket. These and then you get so mad at like the needless way that the world keeps moving of like yeah,
And Xander's just like, I don't give a shit. And I actually I often say that I think Xander is like covertly one of the best characters of the whole show, but also like one of the
that's a
hardest to like.
controversial. Yeah, that's a
Well, like,
controversial.
he's one of the hardest to like
Yeah,
because he's like the most like consistently like the shittiest member of the group, but I also think like in that is like there's an authenticity to it because
yeah,
I think the way they develop him is pretty good. Like the how you never really get to see his home life, and so you just glean what his home life is like from how he
yeah.
like passive aggressively jokes about it and shit like. So I guess I like him because I think he's like a nuanced character. I don't think he's a good person. I think he's very far from one. Especially in season 6, like the shit Xander does consistently throughout the show are horrible shit,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like so unreasonably human or like overwhelmingly human the shit he does
Well,
that
the
I
popular
find it
reading is
authentic.
that Xander is Joss's analog. Is the popular
I
reading
would
that?
buy that.
Yeah,
I
me
haven't
too.
heard that, but I'd buy it. I'd buy it because
Yeah,
he's less. He's not that the rest of the cast are perfect, but like they're fallible. Like Buffy is constantly fallible, but like also is able to like usually overcome her failures in some way. Most like Willow fails in like season 6 and is able to try and like overcome her failures, and that's like a
Yeah.
constant thing in the show. Xander never overcomes his failures.
No.
Like he's constantly just fucks up and then just has to live with the consequences of the shit he did, which I don't
Absolutely.
know. I guess I find that compelling, but that's why I like him here, is because he's you know he's handling in like the worst way a person can handle this shit, which is that he's making everyone feel even worse because he's like
Yeah, in a
punching a
pretty
wall.
toxic way. He even punches a wall.
He punches a wall. He's like, it's the fucking doctor's fault. I'm gonna, if
Yeah.
but like I relate to that shit too. Not in the example I gave, but like in
But like
when
Tara's
shit. Yeah.
characterization here is so good though, because like Amber, it cuts to Amber Benson's face quite often because she can
Oh
see,
yeah,
like
quite a
it's like
lot.
Xander's words are piercing her, but not because they're insulting, but because she can feel like the pain, like where it's
She
actually
gets it.
coming from, you know?
Yeah, like you would understand the other characters getting mad at him, but not
Yeah.
Tara getting mad at him. In the same way they get mad at Anya. Like they're like, Tara understands Anya's reaction, but no one else does. And I
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
like she
I
like
mean, Tara's
yeah.
Tara's my favorite. Tara and
She's
Face are
one of the
my
best
favorite
characters by
characters.
far. By far one of the best characters.
Which is
By
amazing.
far.
Um,
But
and like she did make me cry again watching it, but like normally it's just her. This time Anya just Emma Caulfield. Wow.
yeah,
Oh,
again, like it took so long for me to realize how much I love Anya as a character. It took me so long.
yeah,
Because
same.
at first
Same.
I thought saw her as like kind of just like tangent, like just like this weird extension to like buff the cast, but then like you watch it again, I think it's partly also like how season 6 pans out with her and Xander. So like I also like
Mhm.
have that hindsight now. So I'm like,
Well, like
man,
superficially, Anya is just like demon capitalist girl who is afraid of bunnies. Is like the
yeah, she's like a gimmick character played
superficial
up as
thing.
one. Yeah,
But
she's
there's
definitely
so
played
much
up.
humanity to her, especially you know when she starts to like incorporate emotionality like into her like forcibly into her persona. But that's still, I think watching it back, I'm gonna love Anya, especially like you don't understand. I hate being human. I can't like rip people's heads off and blah blah blah. And I'm flunking
Yeah.
math. like,
She filled
like
a good void after Charisma
after
Carpenter
Cordy
left the
left,
show.
yeah.
Yeah, she left a good void of like just like this weird. She was slightly less hostile than
Mhm.
her, but like
I
filled
like
that
that we
good
have
like
our human characters
antagonism.
here, and like we don't know what Angel thinks. James Masters is a star here, but he's not in this episode. Decidedly, like we're keeping Spike out of this. I like that it
No,
is
I
the.
actually saw a thing about that where the like they showed
We've been talking
Joff.
about James Marsden so much, by the
I
way.
just I realized I said that. Yeah, I caught
I
myself.
think I did too.
He showed him the script for the body and he was like, man, this is the best script you've written, and he's like, yeah, you're not fucking in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but if I do remember, and I do remember correctly, like he brings flowers to their house, like in the next episode, like because remember he
yes,
has a good relationship with her. One of my favorite parts of season 2 is when Spike has to team up with Buffy near the end, and he's like sitting there
he's
with
hanging
Joyce
out with his
having like
mom.
tea.
Yeah. And he's like,
Fucking
have we
great.
met before? And he says, yeah, you hit me with an axe, which is the episode I just watched,
Yeah,
because he almost kills Buffy, and then her mom comes up and hits him on the head with an axe, and he's like, yeah, you almost killed me once.
yeah. Okay, that's why we can't have Spike. But, but yeah, that's an amazing script. After that, we get some of the best work with Dawn on the whole show.
Oh my God, yes, that this was actually, I was surprised how much I remember of this episode, but like the scene with Dawn was the one that was like in my head, like viscerally in my head when I thought of this episode. It's
I,
brutal.
it's incredible. You want to start us off on Dawn?
I
Like
mean,
find like
it already starts great with like the little like quotidian, situation, which is that like her problems have nothing to do with what is happening
yeah,
around her. Like she's getting bullied
yeah.
at
She's
school.
crying, and yeah, you think it's
You think it's about that, but they reveal it's because she just got called like crazy or like a freak,
yeah.
and she's accused of self-harming. Um, and it's a really good cut. It's like the only instance in the episode I think of like some kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it, but like taking you out of the moment in a way
Oh,
that's kind of like reflexive. Because most of the
yeah.
other episodes like played straight, like you're shown all the information, given all the information, you just watch the
I
situation
like
play
some of
out.
the misdirect. There's another misdirect I really like too when Buffy calls the paramedics and they come and they save Joyce, and then in a really quick, almost
Oh
ironic
yes, yes, yes,
montage,
yes,
like
yes.
we see Joyce getting better and going like, "Thank gosh, it's a miracle. I'm alive." And then harsh cut, she's still just a body on a floor, and you're
You
like, "Oh my
also
god."
Yeah, that was a rough one. I forgot about that. And there's also the opening, like the second opening, which is like the dinner, which I read is
Yeah,
because they needed to have the opening credits. Like they have to have the opening credits, but they were like, it's gonna be so fucked up to have Michelle
yeah.
Trachtenberg like over Joyce's corpse. So they added that scene so that it would be less jarring. But
Oh, it's the Last Supper, really. I guess probably.
yeah, it is. But Dawn, that scene is beautiful. I love that scene. I know
Mm-hmm.
people hate Dawn. I never hated Dawn that much. She has her moments where I find her frustrating, more in season 6 than in 5. Here she's wonderful. Absolutely
Even
wonderful,
Dawn
Michelle
is like
Trachtenberg.
possibly the most complicated way that Whedon deals with identity and what it means to be anybody. Because
Because
like
she
Dawn's like,
doesn't be. she
yeah, like Dawn's like no one. Dawn was like invented out of thin air, like, and she only exists because of like that implanted magic memories in everyone's head. Like she's not a real person, and yet she is a real person, right? Like
Yeah, it's
like
really good.
that's a fascinatingly complicated way to handle, like, are you still a person if you didn't actually exist but everyone insists that you did? Like, I, yes, I guess yes, but the way they handle this scene is beautiful. Insists on her in the bathroom, like just doing like normal like 13, 14-year-old girl shit of like, man, she's such an asshole and she calls me crazy and that's not fair. And then she gets to
Yeah.
like flirt with like the cute boy at like the art class or whatever, and
And
like,
she tries to convince him that she doesn't self-harm, and then he's like, I understand if you do. And she's like, yeah, I do. And like,
and then Joss handles this perfectly, where it insists on her friend like walking over, like when Dawn goes out to like see Buffy, and Buffy is telling her what happened, and everyone can see that something bad happened, right? And her friend's like walking up to like the window, the glass, like looking out at her, like as if like she, like even at that age, you want to, like there's like a very human thing to want to comfort someone.
yeah.
It's like a human, like it's like it reminds me of the Terra stuff, like for being such a nihilist, like Joss can get like really humanist and really like almost metaphysical with the idea that like it's a natural human thing to want to comfort someone, and like humans know when something traumatic is like being revealed to someone, like they know, and like you
And
want to
then and then it manifests in like the kind of ironic way, which is you're like, I know it's bullshit when people say like, is there anything I can do? But I'm also gonna say, is there any like it
yeah.
you start
And
commenting on the thing while doing the thing.
once again, it's brilliantly composed too, because when Dawn leaves, it like pans back over to her unfinished art piece, which is like
Negative
kind of a
space.
sketch of a body, but like is it an art? Is it a sketch if it's unfinished? If there's no painter left, if there's no involvement left, is it just a scribble? Is it nothing then? Or is there still an identity to the art piece even though it's not defined anymore? Like it's
It's
still
also
there.
it's also technically, this only just occurred to me what because you were talking about it. It's a body that has no interiority because it's defined by like the negative space around it. So there's
That's
nothing inside. It's just a shape, but it looks like a body.
Thank you
I
for
originally
springboarding off of that. That was brilliant. Yes, thank
I
you.
well originally I thought it was meant to be an analog for Dawn because Dawn is like a
I think
fake
it is.
person. I think it's both, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's really good. And
That's
that's all I
wild.
feel like every kind of sequence ends with some weird like note like that,
Hmm.
like off-putting notes. That seems like kind of almost ironic, but like given the context to like serious to laugh at, but like well, I'm thinking again of like the car ticket, like the ticket on the car.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, a person these people
But
love is dead, and
that
you
will
end a scene with
elicit
like
the
a
same emotion from everyone who sees that
yeah.
ticket scene of like an eye roll or like a god.
It
Why
has
would they
nothing
do
to do
that?
with that. Yeah,
Like why
the
would they
world just
do that?
doesn't care. They don't care at all. It's really beautiful.
And
And
then
that goes into the morgue, right?
I believe we're at the morgue now. And by the way, like with each different vignette, because that's how this is really set up.
Yeah,
We
it's
we're
little.
getting like we're getting the autopsy of the body, like in
Mhm.
brief glimpses with each different like situation that we're in. We're getting like
Yeah,
little, and we're not even seeing like who's wearing the gloves. It's just a normal doctor or whatever, but like he's just in a
it's a
very
job.
sterile clinical way, just like cutting into her head or like unzipping the bag or whatever body bag.
Yeah,
So
it's a
that's how
super
like
disinterested process.
exactly. I'm really
Yeah,
hammering the point home that like this is not Joyce anymore. She's been literally dehumanized.
yeah. It
Um,
also on that note of like the sequences, I was surprised like how few scenes there actually are in this because they're just so
yeah,
long.
I mean
Like
we
the
only
scene
got
in
like two left. We got the morgue and then
it's
the fight at the end.
yeah, because like you watch the scene at Willow's like apartment or room, it's literally like or like a quarter of the episode. Or like almost
Hmm.
a third of the episode. It's like 10, 15 minutes, something like that. It's a while. It's a long time, and that's every scene in this. Even the intro, like we called it the introduction, but that's also like the first like 10 to 15 minutes of the episode.
Yeah,
Like they're long. They're long,
it
like really
is.
languid scenes.
And by the way, each one is just as powerful as the one that came before. Like
Yeah.
there's no weak part at all. It's a patient episode that doesn't feel like there was any wasted time. Like
Yeah, there's
every
no dead air in it. There's always something happening. They
exactly,
even like
and now
they
we're
did
not.
what?
Go on.
I was gonna say they even make a point to like as soon as like dead space appears in some form, something happens to punctuate it. Like a sequence ended in Willow's room, and then Nicholas Brendon punches the wall, and then it moves on to the next thing. Like just there's not even really a time to process what one like when one thing happens, like process it all. Like Anya has her whole monologue, and then it immediately moves on to the next thing, which is
Yeah,
weird. It almost feels fast paced, given that the episode is again like 15-minute scenes of
and yet
people
thinking back on
standing.
it, I remember these silent moments. I remember, like you said, Buffy looking at wind chimes, holding the phone in her hand, like
And then she cleans up
um,
the vomit. And you get a long
yes.
like take of it like just staring at the vomit on the paper towel.
How about the part where like we already left, but like Buffy like sees that her mother's skirt is riding up slightly,
Yeah, I
and she
love
goes over
that.
and she makes her decent. She pulls the skirt back down. Like there's so many things here that like just
Yeah, she wanted
fucking
her to
like
have dignity.
this episode of television like hits me harder emotionally than like probably anything I've ever seen. And you know, I I'm I'm not like the most easily moved person, but it's also well done here. But yeah, we're at the morgue now, and they definitely do that thing with that I was talking about that's so like anti-cinematic that I love so much, where the doctor is telling her
Oh
how
yeah.
she died, and you're once again seeing it like this, just like at an awkward, like Buffy's eye level. Um, because our lives actually aren't cinematic, you guys. Because when real life happens, it's pretty anti-romantic. Um, but that's how that's happening at the morgue. My
You
favorite
get
part
that.
of that is
I think we're about
the
I think we are gonna say the same thing. So yeah.
I mean my favorite thing is the Tara conversation, but
Oh, I was gonna say that in the scene you were describing where he's describing what happened to her and she's like, was it okay? He's like, oh yeah, she was fine. She, probably didn't feel it, maybe a little nauseous, and it's like, I'm lying to make you feel better. And
yeah,
the
exactly.
dubbing doesn't match the lips. It's a really good thing. But no, I
It's
agree.
wild.
The Tara conversation,
It's
beautiful.
beautiful, and it's beautifully framed too, like awkwardly symmetrical because there's like a cushion between them, and they're sitting on either
Yeah,
side
Buffy's like a
there.
little off center on it. Buffy's like a little
Yeah,
too far from the frame for it to be perfect.
exactly, and that has to have been deliberately done because it
Yeah.
looks so well crafted there.
I also
And that's
love that.
when and that's when Tara reveals that she's been through trauma as well, and that's normally that scene brings tears to my eyes every time. That's normally the one where I lose it.
It works because again, like we've already said, like that Tara's like the most outside of the situation aside from maybe like Anya, but she's the most like outside of the situation, but that makes her like the most capable of like actually talking to Buffy or talking Buffy through what she's processing. Because even like Giles, because Giles is like a father figure to Buffy, and he's the one like handling this in the most composed way. Even he has like nothing to offer her, and even
Yeah.
he, you know, Tara. Tara's the one that's like actually able to like relate to what Buffy is experiencing in like a not necessarily mature but like a composed way, in a way that like Buffy can, you know, connect with, because everyone else is like, can I get you food, and she just like it goes in one ear and out the other, and she's not like processing it. It's like the only proper conversation Buffy has with someone in the whole
No,
episode.
it is. It's the most the most productive conversation. It's the
Yeah,
one
I
who
would.
you least expect, and it's something about Amber Benson's performance and the overall
She's
characterization
a
of Tara.
wonderful
Tara is,
actress.
yeah, oh, she's great, and
Wonderful,
Tara, like through
wonderful.
and through, is like such an empathetic character, and such and a character that will never cut you off or like step on your words or your feelings. Like she'll the way that Tara handles that situation is there's a confidence, at least in like
That
in
what
her
she's
revealing
saying
her
is
past, but
valuable.
there's also
Yeah,
like everything that Buffy's going through is valid, and that she
yeah,
even says like, oh no, I don't mean like.
yeah.
Tara's the only
Exactly
one
the
who
same.
tries to make, who really chooses her words in this episode. She's the only one
Yeah,
who really like deliberates over how she wants to like engage with Buffy. Everyone else just does it viscerally, does it raw, because they're also dealing with such a the tragedy as well. And you can see Tara, that scene is so patient once again, because I think Tara is choosing her words really carefully before she says them, and they end up being like so meaningful on account of that. And I actually think Buffy is moved by that conversation
mm. No, I agree. I agree.
as much as she can be in that
Yeah,
immediate response to trauma, as much as she can be. Like Tara couldn't have done better to try to
better.
help.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a really wonderful scene. It's again, it's the only one that she seems to like really like register that someone's talking to her, and I think just by virtue of that alone,
And
it
it's also like,
reveals that it's valuable to her.
and I can see that like Buffy is going through it, and I could probably speak from personal experience again. Like when trauma happens to you, um, it's awkward because it's one of the most selflessly selfish things like you go through, because like uh, you're really thinking of yourself in relation to this tragedy more than you are of any other thing, and it's hard for you to really like accept any sort of like nurturing from others, especially from
Yeah,
outsiders. But I think that that's a more revealing case of it, because Tara has never like mentioned this before. Like Tara is a strong person. She's been through all of this as well. Or and it wasn't like when she was a child. It was when she was like 17 or 19 or something. I remember
yeah,
saying
I
like
think that's what
it
she
was a
says.
pretty recent like event. And it's just like the things that you don't ask are like why, like Buffy, I can even see it in Sarah's like performance, like why didn't I even know this, or like why didn't I even expect this, you know, like I don't know, I see you know, everyone falling over themselves for the tragedy of Buffy, but then there's people like Tara as well who like I think internalize it and handle it on their own because they don't have a support group like Buffy is like um
No, I agree. I think it's similar to how they kind of show like again like Xander processing things or other characters where it's like largely in the background, and you kind of
yeah.
get it from like little bits of dialogue, or even I would say like Charisma Carpenter throughout Buffy and into Angel. You see like these shifts happening, but it's so minute. It almost doesn't register. Whereas like Buffy, it's like there's these very pronounced changes that take place in her life, and then whenever they happen she vocalizes them. You know, you get a big season 6 monologue about how she feels depressed that goes on for like 3 minutes, where she describes in great detail how depressed she is, you know, and you never get that. You get, you know, you get like Tara saying like, oh yeah, my mom died like 4 years ago and I never mentioned it, or you get like
Yeah,
Xander saying, yeah, my dad, you know, my dad's an alcoholic, or and you know, he just makes that in passing and then moves on, and
I think
you
it even
never like,
speaks to like to Whedon's idea of the body, like as you were saying earlier, a body without interiority. But then there's this hidden interiority to people that we didn't even know about.
Yeah, it's like a
Like
ground
there are
beneath
so
the
many
ground.
layers to there's so many layers to Tara, and like before that moment, she lacked that interiority. But did she truly lack that interiority, or was it only lacking because he didn't know it? But now that's
Yeah,
part of
because it
her identity.
informs it. It
Yeah,
informs her
exactly.
actions like retroactively. You can kind of see
Wow.
the how it informs, like in say her introduction and her early relationship to Willow.
Oh wow, because all we are bodies without interiority unless we find a way to like make that
Change
interiority visible. Oh,
or
what
change
the
in some way.
or
I think
change.
that's actually
Whoa.
I think that's actually why this might be, I don't know if this is a controversial take. I haven't seen anyone talk about it. I kind of like Willow less as the show goes on. Like I think in the first like say 4.5 seasons, 4 or 5 seasons, she's like the one of the best characters.
Yeah.
But then it's like she hits the end of her character arc.
Yep.
And then the show goes on for another 3 seasons. And so Willow like doesn't really change after
Well,
she
all
meets
you
Tara. You get the season 6 thing, but even that isn't like
but that only happened because they removed Tara from her.
Tara. Yeah, so
Yeah.
like once you get Tara, and I think this is like kind of the best way to describe season 7, which because like season 7 is a season where like not much changes, but like yeah, like Willow kind of just like hits the end of her character arc and like stops changing, and she mostly becomes interesting to me in those seasons in relation to Tara.
Yep.
Tara, like Tara's like an incredibly interesting character, but mostly because you're being introduced to her, so you don't know anything about her, and so yeah, I
Exactly.
guess,
But
yeah,
you also never think to ask, and neither does anyone else.
yeah, yeah. No, she's really covert.
Like, remember when we meet Tara's family?
Oh,
And they're like awful. Like Amy Adams, remember?
Amy
Like
Adams
they're
plays her mom.
plays her sister or cousin
What
or
the
something.
fuck?
Like we see
I don't
Tara's
remember
family,
that.
and they're
I don't remember
miserable
that at
people.
all. I
They're
completely
miserable,
forgot
like
about that.
hyper religious people who hate witches or some shit,
I completely forgot that.
which is very low key for hate gayness, hate queerness.
Yeah,
Is the
there.
overall metaphor there. And that episode actually ends with like Amber Benson smiling, the best smile I've ever seen on television, because they're all like, "You're part of us now. You're part of our family." I don't think it happened yet
No,
by the body,
I'd
but
be
like, oh
surprised
my
if it
god,
did.
that's
That's
another.
actually like one of
No
the
one
weird
brings
things
the
of this.
waterworks for me more than fucking Tara. Like, it's an understated character
I agree.
that has so much, but like to go with the interiority, like we're all just bodies without interiority until we can define or change or do something with them, and all maybe it's our fault too, like I ask, I don't know. But after that we get Dawn sneaks off to the morgue to look at the body because she really needs to see
See
it with
it.
her own eyes. I mean, I don't know what she
Yeah.
has to do. I understand it, but I don't know exactly why she's doing it. She has to see it, the visceral
Yeah.
response to looking at it. She wants to know she's actually gone.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you want like the closure and then you actually see the body and then you feel exactly the same as you did before and
Exactly.
you're like where's the music cue? Where's the credits? Where's like the thing where I reach like this plateau of emotion and it doesn't
There,
happen.
there's no actual closure. In fact, like it's a dehumanizing experience to see the person once so full of life in this stiff, cold thing. Because they're
Yeah.
always talking about like the visceral touch, like the of the body, about it being cold and frigid
Hmm.
and empty.
Hmm.
But a vampire springs to life while she's in
Yeah,
there
it's
looking
like
for her mother's corpse.
you that happens you're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
I forgot what this town is." I forgot like this whole episode like 30 people were getting like killed by like a lizard man probably somewhere.
yeah.
Like at the high school.
And Buffy has to go in there and cut off this vampire's head.
Yeah, with like a surgical, I don't know what you call it, like a bone saw, I think.
Yeah,
Something like
and
that.
we get our brilliant ending, which is like they're both on the ground. The vampire's been dusted, and Buffy can see that her sister's looking at the corpse of their mother, and Buffy, like I said earlier, is saying like it's not her, like she's not there anymore. And Dawn is reaching out to just touch her face or her hair or something, just to touch her, and goes like, then where did she go? And then it cuts really quick, just as her
Yeah,
hand's about to
it
touch his
reminds
forehead.
me of the last shot of Prince of Darkness. Not to spoil that for
Hmm.
people, but like where he touches, like the conclusions that he's like he has to confront whatever the person is beneath his skin, because he realizes he doesn't know anything about himself, and he touches the mirror to touch himself, and it cuts before he makes the contact, so you're kind of denied that conclusion about it, or
Hmm.
whatever. You're in both cases you're kind of like denied whatever that offers them. you know you don't know what she gets from that experience of touching her mother, which I
Exactly.
actually like. Not to get too into it because it's kind of morbid, but I had that same thing actually, um, where it's like, yeah, I did exactly what Dawn did in this episode, in that
Mhm.
instance. More than anything, because I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to. It was
Yeah.
weird. It was weird. I was like, I feel like I should, just out of respect or something. And it was like this weird moment. It's probably like the most surreal experience of my life, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of respect that they don't like show it, just because
Yeah.
it's one of those things that's like it's not something you can articulate. It's like it happens to you and but you don't do it. It's like I don't know how to explain how surreal the experience is. It's just very weird. It's very weird, but
Absolutely.
that,
I've done that with other members of my family that have died, or friends, but I remember
yeah.
with my mom specifically, I didn't want to see the body because she had this thing about it.
Mm, I remember.
That's just wild.
It's disorienting. It's like
Like,
out of
did you
body
feel like you were
experience.
touching, like, did you feel like it was anything, or what did you feel?
No, no, it was because I think I kissed her head, like her forehead, and it was like felt fake, like
Yeah.
like it was like plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the embalming too, right? Yeah.
Oh no, this was shortly after she died,
Oh,
so still, yeah, while we were waiting. Um, Mostly because I was trying to get my mom out of there. But yeah, it was shortly after. Although not to get too great, she had been there for like a few days, like before she died. But at that point, she had only been gone for like maybe 20 minutes. But no, it's a very out of body. It's very out of body. It's very disorienting. It's very. I keep saying that just because I don't know how else to describe it. But I like understand the compulsion, I guess, in the episode.
no, no, no. I understand the compulsion
And
too.
I think it manifests in different ways because I think like people have like different justifications for why. I think it's just more of like a primal thing, if anything else.
Yeah,
Like you feel like you're supposed to, then you invent reasons for why you're probably supposed to. But it's more just because you want to satisfy that curiosity about like, I don't know, that's gonna be me or something like that. Yeah, it's very weird. Otherwise, I relate more to like the almost kind of like dissociating yourself from the emotions, which Buffy kind of does by the end.
yeah,
Because I remember like after I saw my grandma died, I called a bunch of people to tell them and then to comfort them. And I'm like, I'm fucking here, man. Like I'm the one that like I was there when it happened and I'm trying to comfort other people that are like 30 miles away. And I'm like, but I did because I thought I don't know,
yeah.
like a coping thing. But yeah, I did that too, which I think like characters do in this episode. I think after a while, like they all kind of take on that role, like when they go to get snacks for Buffy. It's
Yep,
more for them than anything else, because they're trying to like, I need something to do that feels helpful or productive or useful in some way. So they go to
exactly.
get candy for her, and they're just like, I don't even want the candy. I'm like, that's fine, I got it. Yeah, it's like that. It's that. you know.
Fascinating, and that ending is so powerful. That sharp cut. Like, I know the ending's coming, but it still kills me
I
every
forgot
time. I
about
don't
that
expect
shot.
it.
Yeah, I forgot about that shot completely. I mean, I knew how it ended, but like I forgot that it specifically that shot. Like I
Hmm.
assumed it was gonna like there was gonna be more exchange of words because again, this has been like 7 years since I watched this. I thought there was like a few more words of exchange before it cuts to black, and then I saw that I was like, oh shit, that's rough.
Yeah.
It's really rough. And what's the episode after this? It's
After this, Dawn tries to bring her back.
that's right. I remember that one. Yeah, she tries to bring her back to life. But we go
I
right
believe
back into like the dumb bullshit.
I think
Yeah.
Spike freaks out and like doesn't want her to. I think that's or Spike freaks out and they try to bring back Buffy. Spike freaks out once or twice. I don't know
Yeah,
about resurrecting
he's
dead
often
people.
involved in resurrections. Although it is funny that like they actually do resurrect Buffy. And I remember I saw people complain about that because then they're like, well, why not Joyce? And it's like, Buffy's Jesus. Don't worry about it. Buffy's a superhero. She's supposed to come back. No one else is. But there is kind of a weird like inconsistency, and I think this is, I'd say, like the whole fucking nature of Buffy is that like constantly inconsistent with like all of its shit. Like magic. I was actually talking to a friend a couple days ago where we were talking about like how sometimes magic is a metaphor for being gay, and then other times magic is a metaphor for drug addiction. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to say there, Joss? What are you trying to say about gay people, Joss? But
Yeah.
I think one of the other things is like how death is like this weird thing in Buffy where like in season 2 there's an episode where like a football player died, like a high schooler, he died, and you see how his mom is like horribly traumatized by it to the point that she like watches footage of him playing football
Yeah.
over and over and over and over and over again forever. And he was like, his brother's like, oh yeah, I just brought him back to life as a zombie, and he's like fully functional,
Yep.
he can talk, he's can walk, he can move around. The only downside is that he looks like a zombie, but everything else he's fine. And they do this a lot in the show, like people constantly like coming back to life, and they're just like, no, it's all good, man. I'm just a zombie. And then other times you get episodes like this, and it's like, no, death is final. There's no fucking coming back from it. And I'm okay with that. I like Buffy on the merit that it's a fucking mess of a show that's all over the place constantly. It doesn't really, cohere a lot. But I like that. I
Yeah.
like how chaotic it is, how like vampires, it doesn't matter if you fucking kill them because they're just demons, there's no person underneath. But then they introduce vampires who have a person underneath, and you're like, so
Yeah.
okay, is Buffy just a goddamn mass murderer? But it works through those contradictions in a really, like, I think, beautiful way most of the time. Not all the time. I think the drug addiction magic metaphor was a little on the nose, but other times I think it's quite beautiful, quite compelling.
I think it's mostly beautiful. I
Yeah.
think it mostly nails it. Um, with any show that has over 100 episodes, there's going to be a
Yeah,
bit of inconsistency, but
with different writers. It's the Star Trek thing. I've been getting to TNG, and they do a similar thing where it's like they introduce rules and then they introduce other shit, and they completely contradicts, but it's because they have different writers every week
yeah,
and stuff like that. You know, not every writer's going to remember some like throwaway line of dialogue about Fox Mulder's past that you did 3 seasons ago, and it's going to contradict the thing that comes up now. But you kind of have to roll with it. Again, you have a TV show where it's like set in a town with presumably a population of like 300,000, where like 5 people die a week. So
yeah.
you take what
But
you can
they
get.
make it. They're aware. There's self-awareness
Oh
in the thing.
yeah, yeah, they do eventually. They're like, oh no, we all know. We just kind of block it out because we don't want
Yeah,
to
they did
worry
it in
about
the
it.
first episode, not eventually. They're like, didn't they just see all these vampires? Like, don't they know that they're? Yeah, yeah, they know. Just
Yeah, they did it in the episode I watched. The principal, Snyder, great name by the way.
and
Principal
Deep
Snyder.
Space
He's
Nine, motherfucker, right there, dude.
Yeah, he knows about it because like he's implying like, oh, I fucking hate Buffy. I hate these kids. All those kids that died, they were just getting into drugs and gangs and stuff. And then he goes behind the scenes with his smoking man dude, and he's like, they have to know. They can't know about like the vampires in the town. And also
Yeah.
the episode where they give Buffy an award for being the class defender, and she's like, you knew, and they're like, of course we knew.
Season
Every
3 ends with the mayor as a giant snake, like coming to
they're like
graduation and eating kids.
Like Buffy, literally every week you were hanging out in a graveyard punching a zombie that almost kills a high schooler, and you tell the high schooler, "Run, I got this," and you think we don't know, like. But yeah, it's the weird, goofy nature of Buffy that is so endearing, so endearing. You
But
just
it's a
have to
show
roll
that
with it.
can like do this kind of whiplash. Like it can do
Oh,
a body,
easily. I
and
don't
the
think
body
anyone
doesn't
like
feel
was
out of
out of it.
place. If anything, the body feels even more powerful, like within the context of normally this show's tonality is a bit more playful, whereas this one, it's
Even about death, it's playful.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Um,
considering like frequent, like at least five of the main cast get resurrected at various points, and shit like that. So especially if you include Angel, but then other times that there's just no, that you brought up. I don't know if it might have been before we started recording, but the character from Angel, the season one character who dies, I forget his name
mhm.
because it's been like ages since I watched it. What's his name? The Irish dude.
Yeah,
Don't
Irish dude.
remember. Irish dude, yeah, or
And I'll
Scottish dude, I
I'll
forget.
I'll think of it.
Eventually, I mean, even he died, and that was rough. That was brutal. And then the finale of Buffy, they Harry Potter it, and they're like, let's see how many, you know, how much of the main cast we can kill off before the end of the episode. But I
Yeah.
think they only do like two or three. But
Look up what his fucking name was, please.
all right,
Freaking out.
because and I won't spoil like who dies in the Buffy finale, but yeah,
Well, I mean, one of them gets resurrected an angel, so it's fine.
is it the guy? Yes, Glenn Quinn.
Yep, Glenn Quinn.
He played Doyle.
Doyle. Now Doyle's
Doyle.
a great character too.
And
Doyle's
he got replaced by
by Wesley.
Wesley, the pedophile of Sunnydale. That's right.
Yeah. But Doyle's character makes me cry on Angel as well. Great character.
Yeah, and I think Angel does kind of like a slightly more consistent job about dealing with that. At least I didn't watch the whole show. I only watched the first like three seasons,
I've
maybe. But
seen
like,
Buffy a lot more. I've seen Angel all the way through once. I've
yeah,
seen Buffy a lot more.
just because of like its interest, like its genre influences, it kind of deals with death a little more consistently. Like there's a bit more finality
Yeah,
more
and
often, whereas
like
like Buffy is a comic book. So,
just plainly and simply, like Angel just is not nearly as good as Buffy in every
oh
way,
no,
shape, and form. Angel is a good show.
I
At
think he's a
times
good
it can
character
even be
too.
yeah, at times it can even be a great show. But there's quite a lot wrong with it at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Whereas Joss Whedon, I mean, I dig Firefly and I like Dollhouse a lot. Serenity was fine, and then that's about it. I mean, I like Age of
Yeah, and
Ultron
then
too,
he
but that's
and then he
different.
retired and
Exactly, he retired and never made another thing again.
never
Um,
never harassed any people. Never, you know. Again, I do think a lot of the I think some of that shit is obvious even in Buffy. I think it's just at times it's helped by the people who he collaborated with
oh,
make it work.
both Charisma Carpenter and Michelle Trachtenberg are two of the people who came forward talking about him
Yeah.
being
No, it
creepy.
was horrible, horrible shit. They had a special room for Michelle Trachtenberg.
Yeah,
I mean more that like there's like shit that appears in the plot lines of Buffy or in like the
yeah.
decisions he chooses where you can tell like the guy who wrote this is probably not the best guy, but and if it ever works, it doesn't always, but if it ever works, it's only by virtue of like the people who were channeling that shit, making
Yeah.
it good. Like, yeah, again, I said like Xander would be an obscene character in any other context, I think, but like Nicholas Brendon, I think like lends something to it and invented the character sort of on his own. It's that actor as auteur thing, and sometimes like writer, and which isn't me trying to like explain away why I still like Buffy, but like I think
Oh
it's
man, I
worth
have no
considering in a
problem
TV show.
saying it. Like, Joss is problematic, um, an upsetting individual, but works like the body make me cry, and works like the body speak to very personal traumas
Yeah.
I've had.
No, I agree.
Just a
I
thing that
agree.
happens.
It's one of those things like Buffy became more than itself in its own way, I guess, which isn't me like being like
And Buffy has
overly
a huge like feminist and queer following who will tell you that they hate Joss Whedon but love
yeah.
Buffy. Like they love everything
Yeah.
about it.
No, it should wonderful show, wonderful character. I again very formative for me, very formative for me. Again, I find myself relating to different parts of it as I get older. I related more to like the first couple seasons as a watching as a teenager, and now I'm in like my mid 20s and I'm thinking about season 6. I'm like, ah shit.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll,
I
I'll
always
never I'll never get over Faith as the Nietzschean dream girl. I will never get over that. That's
I
perfect.
always
Okay.
I always think of like Buffy's like rock bottom shit in season 6, like just her life just spiraling, like her relationship with Spike in season 6.
Well,
How
nothing comes, dude. It's all Faith for me. Okay, I love the ending of the body. That's harsh, but nothing beats when like Faith accidentally murders somebody and Buffy
yeah.
confronts her and is like, "Hey, you killed a guy." Like you don't get it, Faith. You murdered someone, and
Oh
then
yeah, and
she
she
turns to the
completely
camera and goes,
represses it.
"You don't get it. I don't care." And then cut the credits, like, and then
Oh,
it's
and
silent too.
yeah, and then of course, like you're led to assume that she's actually like horribly traumatized by that experience, but she's like burying herself in like coping
Hmm.
mechanisms to like process the fact that she murdered a guy.
Yeah,
That's okay. Angel redeemed her. It's all good. It's
she was good on some Angel, but Buffy's got a lot of layers to it. I do think like the body is not my favorite Buffy episode. My favorites I think are the ones I just named. The one I was just talking about is Bad Girls and Consequences. That two part. But the body is the episode that I think is Joss at his absolute finest. As a visual storyteller, as someone who has something important to say, both philosophically and cinematically. Like that to me is like the him at the top of his craft and form.
I'd
Um,
agree. I think it's the easiest episode to understand why it's good, I think, because I think otherwise everyone's favorite episode is just so like
is one more
small.
time with feeling.
Yeah, no, well, great episode, but like it's everyone has like a personal reason because it's always like something that like they personally relate to.
Yeah,
Whereas the body is one that's just like it's this universal thing that everyone kind of gets it.
it is.
No one watches the body and says like I don't get why this is, you know, the most popular Buffy episode that to air on, basic cable. You get why. You get why it's so acclaimed. It works.
You can't ignore it. It insists that you give it your undivided attention immediately. Yeah, it's one of the best directed things I've ever seen. I'm always really 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 astonished by what Whedon and the people over at Buffy were able to pull off and capture with the body. I mean, and it comes in at like episode 16 or something. It's not like a huge
Yeah, it's right
moment
in the
in a
middle.
season.
They're even like, do you think this was like Glory that did this? And they're like, no, and then they just kind of move on. You forget
Yeah,
that there's a season-long villain, again, probably like 2 miles away from all this, murdering some innocent people, but you don't think about it. It's all exterior noise.
it's a wild show. Because then at the end of this season, they could have me laughing my fucking ass off at the running joke that like Spike is the only one who knows that like that Glory is Ben and Ben is Glory, because he's like an unnatural monster and normal humans don't know the difference, and they keep going. Wait, are you saying there's a connection between Ben and Glory? Yeah, is everyone like on a lot of drugs here at the moment? Like and then they'd have me cry with killing. Buffy dies at the end of this season.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, like 10 episodes later, Buffy dies and Dawn
Yeah.
is like all fucking alone. She is all alone after that, which is rough. And that was almost the finale.
Yeah, and then Joss is like, fine, I'll bring it back, but you're gonna regret it. You're gonna regret it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna kill I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, I'm gonna kill a bunch of people.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed our
Buffy's
big bads, because now it's three brain dead rapist incels.
I'm
Who
gonna
you
kill
grow I
everyone.
grow to love Andrew. Andrew is amazing. And I'm like Jesus, Joss, stop it.
I'm
The
gonna do
one
some good bottle episodes like Tabula Rasa and Once More with
yeah.
Feeling. Although Once More with Feeling I think is like exceptional from like a story standpoint. What it does is like phenomenal,
It's
really phenomenal.
exceptional, but like that's I know a lot of people who try to get someone into Buffy and they show them like that episode, but it doesn't
Uh,
work unless you've seen the hundred or so episodes preceding
It
it.
it doesn't work because the whole bit is that it's banking on you having just like sat through maybe like 10 episodes of people like aggravatingly not talking about their problems.
Yes.
Like literally that's probably like 14 hours of TV or like 12 hours of TV of people just like having problems, be like, I'm not going to do anything about it. And you being like, ah, God damn it, just talk about it. And then you get this explosive episode where everyone uncontrollably shares their problems in song. It's great.
Except, and I love that like Allison Hannigan can't sing and she gets like 2 lines here and there. Like
Yeah,
there's so
yeah.
much goodness.
Again,
Oh
like there's
man.
not much there to begin with. She's because like at that point, Allison Hannigan's like kind of just hit the end. They could have like
And
you could
by the
like
way,
cut.
I know we're all wondering, yes, I've played Walk Through the Fire at open mic once.
I
They
have
did
not.
play that song. Brilliant song. I did it.
My favorite is the Giles song in the last song, but just because I
They're
think
all,
Anthony Stewart Head is great at singing. I love
yeah,
the
I think
scene
he's an
early
actual
on.
like performer.
Early on in the show's run, there's a part where they walk in, they're like, oh, we gotta find Giles, and they go and they find him, and he's singing Behind Blue Eyes at a bar, and they're all like, am I horny for
Yeah,
Giles?
I remember that.
That's when they try to like, that's about the time where like Giles begins like his punished Watcher arc, like his punished Giles
Yeah.
arc,
Well,
where he's no longer like the librarian dude, he's like this
there's
badass
a way
older.
that like Joss Whedon handles death that I just haven't seen done before. Like it freaks me the fuck out. Because we're in season 2. We're about to get to the first character death that really did fuck me up. When like Angel is chasing down Miss Calendar, who is like pretty
Yes.
cool. Like the techno witch lady or whatever she is, the tech
Yeah, she's
witch.
Giles's love interest, and she's like,
Angel grabs her and snaps her fucking neck.
yep. Yeah,
Like,
it's brutal. It's. I was thinking while watching the body, I was like, it's shocking that this was, you know, on basic cable.
yes.
Because like someone could have just been like flipping through the TV, and then boom, there's like this morgue scene where you see like a scar in the head, and they're talking about how she died of a brain aneurysm. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah,
And then
I don't
again,
know
like you
how they
watch this
do it.
season.
Like you said, like the deaths are arbitrary until they're all of a sudden not.
Well, the
Like,
reason is because the deaths when they're like, all right, you accept that all this death is arbitrary. You better remember that when,
yeah,
a character just
yeah.
dies for no fucking reason. Because that's
Oh,
how,
God.
all these no name, all these red shirts in the background, all these red shirt high schoolers and, teachers just die whenever it's convenient for the plots. Like, I hope you remember that when Miss
Perfectly
Calendar gets
said.
her fucking neck snapped or Angel
Perfectly
has to
said.
get stabbed by Buffy. Yeah, it's great. So maybe it is consistent. It's more consistent than we gave it
Yeah,
credit for.
yeah, for sure. Do you have any closing thoughts on the body?
Oh, no, I do not.
I think this was a pretty fruitful conversation, actually.
Me
Uh,
too.
I think it was, revealing, and I hope insightful. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Um, yeah, I could talk about Buffy for a few more hours, but I won't torture anyone. um, but I want to thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Jacob, for being here as
Mm-hmm.
usual.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Of course.
have a good one.